All right, I'm here with Coach Turman here for the It's Not About Me podcast number 3. So, Coach Turman, let's learn a little bit more about you and your leadership style. But let's first go back to Wahoo and talk about growing up in Wahoo and what you did as a youth and what sports and activities you were involved in.
Well, in a small town like Wahoo, now maybe 5,000 people, probably closer to 3,500 when I was growing up there. Really just did everything.
Yeah.
So I was a multi-sport athlete. So football, basketball, track, but grew up there. We lived in an old 2-story house. It was about a block and a half from the elementary school and about a block and a half from the high school. So when I grew up there from first grade, went to St. Wenceslas, that's the name of the Catholic grade school there, to Bishop Newman in high school. I never drove a car to school one time in 12 years that is. Walked to school every single morning for 12 years. So, but that's where we grew up. It was a great little town to grow up in, not far from Lincoln, not far from Omaha. And, we had some success. My dad was my high school coach, and we had some success there. So.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your family. Pretty competitive family, pretty athletic family.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in the Turman household?
It was very sports-oriented. My dad was the high school football coach and head football, head track. And so we were always involved in that. I'm big family, so I have an older sister, and then I'm second in line. Brother who's about 4.5 years younger than me, and then 3 more sisters. So there's 6 of us total, and we were all high school athletes, multiple sport athletes. Like I said, small town, you kind of had to do that, and so it was always very competitive. My brother and I got to be more competitive actually as we got older, just because there was just enough gap in between our ages that we never really competed against each other. I did tell my parents one thing I was annoyed about them is that my brother and I were 4.5 years apart, so we were never on the same team.
Okay.
When I was a senior, he was like in 7th grade going into 8th, and so we never competed on the same team together. And so that some of that competitiveness came about as we got older, but
seeing who could break whose record?
Well, yeah. Speed-wise, track-wise, he broke all the records, but and maybe some of the football ones I got to keep. So
yeah. So when growing up, what was it like with your dad at school a lot, practicing and stuff like that? Did you ever hang out at practices when you were little?
So my routine from first grade through 8th grade was go to school, elementary school, junior high, and walk the block and a half from elementary school down to practice. I don't know if I missed more than 3 or 4 practices
K through 12.
from first grade through 12th grade, because that was just what I did. So I was at football practice. I mean, I was around football and football practice every single practice for 12 years at Newman. I think in 3rd grade, I knew the playbook as well as some of the high school kids did. So just being around my dad and being around football all the time kind of spilled over into everything I did.
Yeah. So your dad as a leader, obviously as a father figure, but as a coach, what kind of things did you learn from him growing up and then as he coached you in high school?
Well, expectations. One was expectations. Have high expectations for yourself and for those around you. And then go do what you have to do to meet those expectations. They don't nothing's just handed to you for free. And so he instilled a work ethic that I'm still working on. I think you can always work harder. But that work ethic came from him. The way he approached practices and film and games and everything else, I realized what it took to, find success. And if that's what you really want, then you have to go out and work for it.
Yeah. A lot of times with families at coaching and things like that, the mom has a big role in it. So Your mom had to feed a lot of mouths, be around a lot of games and practices, and sit through a lot of weather. What was it like with your mom being so active in your family?
Wow. So it's kind of strange because my dad is a coach, and he's had a lot of success. Won 300 plus games as a high school football coach, and multiple state titles in football and track, and a bunch of athletic kids that came through our family. And my mom might be the most competitive of all of us, actually. And people don't see that from her. But I mean, what is she? She's 75 now and still playing pickleball. And so when we go play, our family gets together for a holiday. She's in the middle of the pickleball and she is arguing in-out calls and mad when she doesn't win. And so there's a lot of competitiveness that came from her also. The other thing about my mom is she might be the most loyal fan I've ever met. And I've known a lot of people.
Yeah.
And her loyalty to my dad's team, but not just his team, that school, Bishop Neumann, is almost scary. She is so loyal.
Yeah.
So I'll just give a quick story about it. So I had a nephew who was a really good quarterback. His name was Noah Vedral. Played for my dad at Neumann. My dad was coaching his grandson there. And we had a quarterback here named Ryan Moritz. And Ryan was really good. He set the Class B state passing record as a senior. And Noah and him were the same grade. They're both going to be seniors at the same time. And I called home, talked to my dad and mom about football, and I'm on speakerphone. And Dad's like, "So how's it going to be?" And I said, "Well, Dad, we got a really nice quarterback." I said, he has a chance to be really good. And my mom from across the room's like, "He's not going to be better than Noah." And I was like, "Mom, I'm not saying he's going to be. But I said he's going to be pretty good." "Well, he's not better than your godson." And I'm like, "Well, Mom, I'm not arguing that." But she was just so loyal to the people at Neumann, probably your family,
correct,
and my dad's team, and that was just good to see.
Good thing they're different classes.
Yeah, so exactly.
Didn't
have to play each other.
One thing about your parents that I always admire, and I see it a lot in my parents too, is they never miss games. They're always at games. They're always around family. Even now, you go to. I was at the Blair track meet, and your dad's still there, watching Eliza, and it's just cool. I don't know how they made it to all the games with all the grandkids and stuff, but you just look over and there they were on the sidelines. So it's really cool to see.
That's something that they've always done. They supported us very, very wholeheartedly, and they still do with the grandkids. I'm sure there's some stuff that they miss. I did know that Mom and Dad said sometimes, there'll be some AAU game for one of my nephews or something, or nieces in Kansas City, and they're like, we're not driving to Kansas City. Well, with their own kids, they would have for sure, but anything that's halfway in the realm of possibility, they are definitely going to be there watching and cheering and rooting on their grandkids.
Yeah, that's awesome. So from Wahoo, you make the trek to Lincoln. What was it like back in the mid 90s, early 90s with college decisions? I mean, it's different now for sure.
For sure.
But going through the decision-making process for you from a high school athlete to a college athlete, what was that like?
Still stressful. I mean, I'm sure it's stressful now. I see kids going through it now. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I mean, I had a lot of opportunities. I'm from a small school. I was undersized to go play Division I football. I think my senior year I was 165 pounds, and even back in 1993 when I went to Nebraska the first year, that was still small back then. Guys keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but I was still small back then. So I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I talked to some D2s and could go play at UNO or go play at Kearney. Had a couple walk-on opportunities at Iowa State. Iowa State wasn't nearly as good as they are now, but they had offered me a chance to walk on. And I just remember sitting at home and kind of out of the blue, Coach Osborne called and asked if I would be interested in walking on at Nebraska. And I originally thought it was a joke. It was hard to imagine. Just a kid growing up in Nebraska, 30 minutes from Memorial Stadium back at that time. That was the ultimate dream.
Yeah.
And so I decided to walk on, and it was I look back at it and there's no regrets at all. I remember having the conversation with my mom and dad, and my dad was a teacher and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. The money wasn't like flowing in,
Yeah.
and I had good grades, and I had a regents at Nebraska. And back then, if you walked on, you couldn't accept your regents. So they told me that you have to give up your regents after your first year. When I redshirted a year, so I got it that year, and then I had to go in and sign a letter saying I declined my regents, because at that point, the money in the colleges wasn't like it is now with the revenue share and everything else. Who knows what's going on? But there were apparently some schools that were using academic money to up their number of scholarships on the football team. And so the NCAA came and closed that loophole. And so that was a difficult decision. Looking back at it, it was the best decision I could have made. I will have zero regrets of going to Nebraska and playing football there.
Yeah. Well, you played during what everybody talks about, those golden years of Nebraska football. So take us through a little bit of the little that you can share of practices, locker room, the competitive fire that was there that really made Nebraska, really take off.
Well, I was lucky to be there with the guys that were playing there at the time I was there, and just that era of success that it's pretty unmatched when you look back at it through college football history. I mean, Alabama probably, maybe Miami, but there was a run there where I think at one point we were 63-3 or something as a college football record. And so I got there and I redshirted. And, I played quarterback and safety in high school. And when I went there, they had a bunch of quarterbacks. When I got there, there was Tommy Frazier was in my same recruiting class. And
he was okay.
Yeah, he was okay. And then there was another 4-star quarterback named Ben Roots who came up from Oklahoma. So they had two really good quarterbacks in my grade, and they asked me to play defense. Well, that's not really my mentality. Even today, I'm an offensive guy. I just kind of fit better on the offensive side. Maybe don't have the same stick it to people, that
more of an avoidance guy.
Yeah, I was rather try to avoid getting hit hard than trying to hit somebody hard.
Yeah.
And so I was there, and I was only there for a couple weeks, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if this is going to work." And so they actually moved me to wide receiver, which I thought was going to be cool, but I had never really done that before either. But growing up, I was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and my hero since I was 5 or 6 years old was Lynn Swann for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that was kind of like, I'd be
just following his footsteps.
So I did a 1 year at receiver. My redshirt year was a receiver, and my second year, it was actually I got called in by Coach Osborne, and he knew we had run a bunch of option at Nebraska or at Newman at my high school, and we were playing Iowa State. Iowa State had a quarterback named Todd Doxson who was a option quarterback, and he asked me if I could remembered how to do all that from high school. And I said, yeah. So I went and played scout team quarterback for that week and ran the option well, got killed. I did get a nice little plaque that said scout team player of the week. It really means got crushed for a week, but
getting tackled by NFL guys.
They were NFL guys. And so that's kind of how I got switched to quarterback, that one opportunity. And he just said, I think you should just stay a quarterback. And so that's kind of where I stayed. And Ben Roots ended up transferring out, and Tony Veland, who was a great NFL guy at safety, moved from offense to defense. And there were just a bunch of dominoes that fell, and I kind of ended up in a spot where I earned a top 3, top 4 type thing my first year at quarterback as a young guy that kind of lucked into the quarterback spot.
That's a great story about just working and
So one of the things that happened, we talked, I was up in the air whether I'd ever even get a play at Nebraska or even get a chance. That was always your dream. That chance came, and then it was just a series of events and stick with itness with myself to persevere through. I did not like the defensive part. I wasn't very good at the receiver part. But I kind of caught on, later on through some
took took your opportunity and ran with it a little bit.
I tell kids that a lot now, that at some point in time, you're going to get that opportunity, and you got to be prepared for that opportunity. And I think I can relate to that to them pretty well, because that's what I had to do.
Yeah. So what was it like in the quarterback room when you were Brooke Beringer, Tommy Frazier, yourself?
Yeah.
What was it like in that room day in and day out?
Well, Coach Osborne worked with quarterbacks a lot. And then our quarterback actual coach was Turner Gill, who was like a childhood idol of mine. Back in 1983, they had the scoring explosion with Turner Gill and Irving Fryer and Mike Rozier. And, you're at that point, I'm 10 years old, 11 years old. And I watch them on TV, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's the score, the Nebraska scoring explosion.
Yep.
And now he's your quarterback coach. And so it was pretty intense. Coach Osborne never raised his voice. He never got mad or yelled at you. He did everything. It was just the expectation he placed on you. And it was interesting because he could get guys to work harder, pay more attention, want to learn, just by his presence and his expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just didn't want to let him down.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where you're like, he's expecting me to know the coverage, right? And where this guy's going to be, and what play we need to get into, and who's blitzing, and everything else. And he was such a smart football coach.
Yeah.
That you tried to live up to his knowledge, and it was hard, but you also didn't want to let him down. And so he had this unique way of bringing out the best in his players without the yelling and the screaming and the motivation that way. And it was something that is hard to explain, but any guy that played for him would be able to tell you the same thing.
Yeah, you hear that from former players, and just the respect they had for him, the expectation that he had of you, and just didn't want to let him down ever. And so you went from your dad that had high expectations, you go from Coach Osborne that has high expectations. What are some more of those things that Coach Osborne instilled in you as a coach or as a person that you look back on and think that you were able to be part of that?
Well, preparedness. Coach Osborne was so prepared, organized, and his work ethic. I don't think players now, or most people that are not like in the profession, they don't know of all the time and work that goes in.
Yeah.
But I just remember once we were down at the Orange Bowl, and I was sitting with Brooke Beringer, and we were sitting, and Coach Osborne gets on the bus as we're taking a bus from the practice field back to the hotel, and he immediately has the film. And this was back, this is early 90s.
Pre-huddle.
So, yeah, pre-huddle. And so he had something, I don't know if it was on like a little, burned it to like a DVD, and he slid it in, and he was watching, and it was not good film. But we're like, he's watching film like immediately as we get on the bus, which back then was like,
because no phones.
Yeah, it wasn't as easy.
Yeah.
And I just remember having this conversation about how much film we think he'd watched, and how many years he had spent watching film and breaking down film and trying to get things ready. But his work ethic and film watching and his preparedness was it was almost legendary. He could predict exactly what was going to happen in a game. There's a couple examples of that. We were going out to play Colorado one year, and they were ranked. We were ranked. It was both highly ranked, and we were out there. And he told us we were going to run this option, but he changed the way we were blocking it.
Okay.
And he said, he told one guy, I think it was Clester Johnson, if you get the blocker on this outside backer, this will score a touchdown. And we ran it first play, and Tommy came out, pitched off the guy, got it to Oman Green. Clester got his block and touchdown. And those things happen, and you're on the sidelines, all the players are just like, how does he know this stuff?
Yeah.
Right? And then there's video out there now of his halftime speech at Miami, 1994, first national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about what's going to happen, right? And it's not, you'd think a lot of those close game national championship, he's never won one. Everybody in the state wants him to win one. The Nebraska's hanging on a thread with, everything, that every play, they're just like, tension.
Yeah.
And he is just as calm as can be, not yelling, not screaming, no rah-rah. Just tells you, this is what we're going to do, and here's what's going to happen. And he talked about, we're going to wear them down. They're going to get tired. When they get tired, they're going to get penalties. They're going to throw fists, right? They're going to fight.
Yep.
Don't fight back. It will kill them, right? He said it will kill them as it goes on.
Yeah.
And he goes, and at the end, we'll just keep punching them and keep punching at them and keep punching at them and keep punching at them, and we'll break through. And that's exactly what happened. We run 2 fullback traps for touchdowns. Warren Sapp is exhausted, and he throws a punch or gets a personal foul and gives us a free first down, and we end up winning the national title. And basically, it was like
he was like Nostradamus.
Yeah,
he was just predicting.
It was unreal.
Future.
Yeah, he knew exactly how it was going to play out, and so I think a lot of that is just done through experience, but also just his preparation and his hard work.
Yeah. So relationships happen through college and things like that. What are those relationships like with Brooke and with some of those coaches that you had there in college?
Well, I think my personally closest relationship was probably with Coach Gill. He was just a guy that was always there. You could always talk to him. It was interesting. He always called his quarterbacks by their number, not by their name.
Okay.
So, and it was I was number 11, and I was never 11. I was always 1-1.
1-1.
So, he'd drop back to throw a pass and, throw a high and wide or something or incomplete. And he's like, come on, 1-1, right? It was always, come on, 1. Or, Brooke was 1-8 and Tommy was 1-5. And so he's like, 1-5, 1-5, instead of, and that's how and it just became endearing. And so, that was kind of his call thing with all his quarterbacks. He'd call you by number. And that was, I will never forget him calling me 1-1.
1-1.
And so there was one time in particular with with Coach Gill. I've been in some huge games, right? Coach Gill, and he's our quarterback coach. And it was the game against Kansas State. It was the game I got to start national TV down in Lincoln down in Manhattan, Kansas. Mm-hmm. Both teams are ranked, and that's 1994, the year we're hoping to win the first national title. And, Tommy's blood clots and is out, and Brooke has a collapsed lung. And so, here's the little walk-on starter coming up into a nationally televised ranked game. And I just remember being nervous. I mean, I couldn't even imagine now with social media what would have been going on, because somehow K-State fans got like back then it was a home number, right?
Oh, it's called your home?
Oh, yeah. They called we had to just unplug the phone because they would call nonstop and leave messages about how they were going to destroy you and we're going to kill you and blah, blah, blah. And so it was crazy. Now, who knows what would have happened.
On X and Instagram, what would have been
crazy. But, I just remember going into that and super nervous. My dad tried calming me down, and that helped. But I just remember right before we go out, Coach Gill just came and put his arm around me and just looked at me and looked me in the eyes and said, 1-1. He goes, just get the first snap.
Yeah.
Right? Just get the first snap. You're going to go out there, get the snap. And he goes, and it's just everything you've been doing since you were 8 years old. Right? It's just football.
Just riding a bike.
And that was great advice. I still use it today. I mean, we have high school guys that are nervous and they're going in for their first varsity game or coming in because, they have to come in for a few plays because a guy got dinged up or something. And I always tell them, get the first snap, and then it's just like practice. It's just everything you've been doing since you were a freshman, right? The plays haven't changed. Just get the first snap, and it just kind of goes from there. And so I just remember that, and that relationship we had was able to bring my anxiety level from, up here, still here, but
and you got that first snap.
Got the first snap, and we ended up winning, so it was okay.
Yeah. Did you ever wonder, from that game becoming the Terminator, what NIL would have been like back then? You would have been, man, just think what would have happened with the TV rights and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it would have been crazy. So some of my teammates and I, we talk about that back in that era, when Nebraska was so good, we might have a little bit different different lifestyle now, maybe a little bit. Probably wouldn't be driving a 2014 pickup truck. So
that is true, but it definitely is something that everybody in Nebraska always goes back to those 90s years and what you guys were able to accomplish and things like that. So then you graduate from college. What happened next? What was next for?
Well, I knew I wanted to get into coaching. I liked being around football, and I think, there was a part of me for a while that thought, maybe I'd go into engineering. I actually like math a lot.
Yeah.
I like right and wrong. I sometimes I have a problem, and my parents have told me this, the gray area in between. I like it. You're either on time or you're late, right?
Yep.
If you're supposed to be there at 8 and you're there at 8:01, you're late.
Yep.
It's black and white. I like that. And so I kind of liked the math thing. And so part of me thought about engineering school and stuff. That was one of the reasons I talked about earlier, Iowa State. I was talking about going to Iowa State to do engineering.
You had coaching always in you.
Yeah. The coaching part of me was just in my blood, I think. From getting up and going to every practice from kindergarten through high school. And then, I think I was ready to be done with the college part of it. I knew I wasn't going to keep playing. I think when you go to Nebraska, you're like, oh, I'm going to go to the pros, but that was never
for the Steelers.
Yeah,
right? Like,
that would have been a dream come true, but not really feasible. And so it kept me around the game. And so I got out, and I moved to education in college, and went that route. And so I got done, and I ended up being an assistant at my first job was at Millard West, and I taught there for 4 years. It was a good experience. Dan McLaughlin was the head coach. He had had a lot of success. We had went back 2 times when I was there. We played in the state finals. Got beat both times. But that was cool to go back to Lincoln as an assistant and coach in Memorial Stadium. Go back to where I played.
Back to where you played.
So I was there for 4 years. Always wanted to be a head coach. My dad is great at giving me advice, and so there were a couple opportunities that I had to go be a head coach. And he's like, just make sure you like the place you're going to. Don't just go to be a head coach just to be a head coach. Make sure it's a good fit. Make sure you like where you're going to be. He did that advice pretty well. My first actual head coaching job was after my 4th year. My 5th year I spent at Valley, Nebraska, which is now DC West. Okay. That was my first head coaching job. And was there 1 year, and then Scott Catholic opened up, and I applied, thinking, being from a Catholic high school, Catholic background, that I would love to be in a Catholic school. And interviewed here with Father Gilg at the time, Monsignor Gilg now, and he offered me the job. And I think he's a big football fan.
Yes,
big football fan. And
he's a 50-yard line guy. I mean, you look back, he's right there on the 50, about row 2.
He told me later on, not at that time, he said, you were hired when you responded to, he asked me the question, what do you see as the future of Scott Catholic football? And I said, well, state championships. And he said, that's the answer I wanted. And so he told me later that was one of the things that he really liked in my response, and it was a 2-word answer. So
that's good. So you get the job here. What are some of those foundational things that you wanted to make sure were instilled as your program?
Well, the first thing, you have all these great, big, huge ideas as a first-year coach, and you want to come in. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take everything Nebraska did, and we're gonna run it at Scott Catholic. And we start doing it, and my playbook is way too big. I'm asking high school athletes to do things that pro guys were going to be doing at Nebraska, and they just couldn't do it.
Yeah. So
I remember I talked to my dad a lot early on, a lot about just coaching and stuff you'll encounter. And he's like, Matt, he goes, I can't give you a list. You're going to run into things that just you got to handle as you go. And so, I was good in the fact that I could condense things that I wanted to do on the field. Make sure you get good at a few things instead of really good at a few things instead of average at a whole bunch of things.
Yep.
I had great assistant coaches. That's something I've been blessed with ever since being here. The coaches that I've been around, they make my job easy. There's a whole lot to that saying, surround yourself with great people and great things happen. And so that is, it's been a blessing. Coaches that have been here a long time with me, now not as long as I've been here, but they typically stay for quite a few years. And so they get the same message. The kids get the same messages, the same coaching styles and techniques. And so that's been excellent. And so I think, just establishing a coaching staff, the biggest thing was the weight room. I think for the most part, every summer, the weight room is open 5 days a week, and I'm here 5 days a week every summer. Because even back when I first started, and what would that have been, 2002, 3? No, 2002. The weight room was the big equalizer. Still is today. Was back then. And when you get the kids to buy into that, I think it paves the way for you to have some success. And so, that was like our biggest push: get in the weight room, get bigger, faster, stronger. And then we were lucky enough to hire you to come do all that for us. So,
but the expectation started in there before it even started.
Yes. I tell our kids a lot. They've heard this from me before. I tell our teams a lot. And it's better now. Our kids kind of know the culture and what's expected. The weight room in the summer, I mean, if you go in there and it is bustling. There's a lot of people. And that's a great thing. But I tell them all the time, I can't guarantee you that we'll play for a state championship if you're in the weight room every day in the summer or in the off season. But I can guarantee you that we won't have the chance to play in the state championship if we're not. When you have a group of kids that's not important, it typically reflects in the success that you see. Probably not just on the football field for me, but across the board.
Correct.
And so I just think that was a big point is the importance of the weight room. The kids working for something together, right? And the weight room doesn't take. There's no favorites in there.
Well, it's pretty black and white.
Yes, it is. It is. And so you're either working hard or you're not. And still today we have kids that are in there a lot. But here was their max in the start of summer. And they're in there a lot, and their max didn't change, right?
Correct.
And it's pretty black and white what happened. Yeah, you came in, you just didn't work real hard. But if you come in and you work hard, you can see gains. And I think seeing those gains breeds confidence, and that confidence spills over to the football field or the basketball court or wherever you're at. And I just think that the weight room in general is the vital component to a successful sports program, football program in particular.
When it's stayed true for many years over the years, that's one area that, as plays change, as all the players change and everything else, that's stayed true to you and your program
for sure,
forever.
For sure.
So you think of that first coming in that first group, that first 4 group, and you were blessed enough to have a good group and win a state title there in 2005. What was it like starting and then building into that and getting to that point and being successful there early?
Well, I came in, expectations were high. I had high expectations. I think the community did. And I think the entire city was like, Scott's going to be pretty good. Scott Catholic's going to be pretty good. And I remember being ranked, and I'm like, I don't know if we should be ranked. And we won our first game, and then we beat Roncalli, who was ranked, and we were like 2-0. And then we played Elkhorn, and the Elkhorn was kind of a big bully at the time.
Yeah, they were. Coach Wortman had it going on.
He did. And so, they beat us close at halftime, and then they decided, okay, right? And they just and kind of got after us. And then things kind of went on a downhill thing, and we ended up 3-6 my first year, and not where we wanted to be. Kept working, and the next year we ended up playing Elkhorn again. So it was my second year, and we won our first game, and we went out to play Elkhorn and beat them in overtime, and it was a huge win because it gave our kids confidence. and we can play with people. And so that year we finished 6-3, won our first playoff game of my career.
Yeah.
And then it ended up getting beat by Gretna, who I think went to the state finals that year. But finished 7-4, really successful year for second year. Next year, same thing, 7-4. But we had a good foundation with that freshman class that came in my first year. And then, those guys just kind of went with it. They were big in the weight room. They worked so hard in the weight room, and they wanted to be good, and they knew what it took to be good, and had the coaching that went with it. We had some great coaches that pushed them, and we went through the regular season undefeated. Got into the playoffs and had a barn burner in the semifinals against Pius.
Yeah.
Won by a touchdown, and we went down to Lincoln and played McCook, and it was a real exciting game.
That was pretty exciting. It came down to the last play.
It did, but 6-0, I think.
Yep.
There was one thing that happened though, and I don't know if Eric will get real mad at me, but
He won't.
we were gonna. They were doing the announcements, and this is all new to us, right? We had never been there before. It was kind of amazing that those kids could take that all in perspective and take that experience and rise above it, because a lot of times just you're in Memorial Stadium. I talked to my dad a little bit about it. He said, get there early, let the kids walk in, look at it all, kind of like, because he said if the first time
you run out
there's the first time, they're like, oh my gosh, we're on Memorial Stadium. It's kind of overwhelming. And so I got some advice from him, but we're down there, and it was just like, are we going to be able to handle this, just the big game atmosphere? Sometimes the experience goes a long way in that.
And McCook had it.
McCook had it for sure. They were on a roll. And so they were doing the announcements, and Eric Brulette was number one. So he was they do it numerically of the guys that are going to be starting. And we had just bought this new, our dance team cheerleaders had just bought this new banner that had Velcro in the middle to bust through. And they let us put it out there at that point. And so, but we hadn't had it. It was like new for the state finals. And they had it out there, and Eric Brulette was the only guy running out because they announced,
they did the lineup with the video camera.
At number one, starting at inside linebacker, Eric Brulette. And he'd go running out from the tunnel out onto Memorial Stadium. He was the first guy. And so he has to break through this banner. And you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And so
Eric and I talk about it every once in a while. He'll love this part.
He thinks it's going to be harder to break through than it is, so he goes and just tries to bust through it. It just splits right open, and he just falls flat on his face. And
there are some characters on that.
There are some characters on that team, and they were all watching the big screen and see it happen. And I don't know, it was almost a blessing, I think, in disguise. I think it was just like the tension just broke. Where it was like. Everybody laughed, right? Maybe at Eric's expense. I'm sure he gets ribbed with it a little bit now, but I honestly think that was one of the things that allowed us just to go out and play. We were way looser after that happened, and it was something I'll never forget. It was something I'll never forget.
It's awesome that you bring it up, because you think of all the different things that happened during that game, and sometimes that might be the overlooked, but it might be the most important part of it.
It might have been, because I think we were really going in before warm-ups. I'm like, our guys are nervous, right? And when you're super nervous, it's hard just to play. And we needed just to play. And so I think that kind of broke the ice and broke the tension.
That's a great story. And so had some success, got the state title there, and obviously have had a tremendous amount of success throughout the career since then, with state titles, state runner-ups, incredible record. Some people look at the success of the trophies, but what defines success for you as a program and as a coach?
Well, I mean, you always want to win. I'm a competitive person, and I want to win. But I've also realized, and I think as I was younger, that win at all costs was probably a little bit more pronounced than it is now. And don't get me wrong, I'm still competitive.
Oh yeah, you are.
I step out on that field, and I'm
you put the visor on and you're ready to go.
yeah, it's pretty intense. But I think success, though, is just watching the kids that I've coached go through the program, learn, hopefully, things that will help them later on in life. Hard work, teamwork, determination, perseverance, fortitude, all of those things you want to instill in your players, and have them go on and continue those traits in their work lives and in their married lives and as dads. And if that is passed on and those young men are using those traits to become successful, I think that's actually a better marker of success than just winning. And so, I love catching up with your players you've coached in the past. I'm getting to the point where I'm coaching kids of the guys I've coached in the past. And so that's a little bit, been around a long time when that starts happening. But, I'm kind of honored in the fact that they want to send their kids here, and they can tell them that, I played for Coach Turman, and they trust me enough that they can send their kids here and have the same, experience that they had.
Yeah. So experiences coaching many, many great athletes and things like that. But what's the experience like coaching your own kid?
Oh, that was a blessing. It was a blessing. It was one of my greatest memories when I played for my dad. One of my greatest memories coaching was when I got to coach Bennett. So his senior year, we were pretty successful. We made it to the state finals. Things didn't go our way in that one, but it was still a great experience. Something I wouldn't trade. And so I was also lucky enough to coach him in track. He was a hurdler, and so that's. I know we're talking about football right now, but in the track world, I've had one state champion, and that was him in the hurdles. And so that was awesome, and I think back to, it's kind of goes full circle. My dad was my head football coach and my head track coach, and then I got to do the same thing with my son as a football player, and was his head football coach and not head track coach, but hurdle coach. So it was quite an experience.
Yeah. What was it like there at Burke with your dad and yourself? How tense was that moment right at the 110 hurdles watching that?
It was pretty special, actually. As you have kids that do this stuff, you want them to succeed, and he put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, and to see that all come to fruition was something that was pretty special.
If anybody's ever at state track and during the hurdles, you can just find Coach Turman and his father down in the same spot every year. So if you ever want to talk to them, you know where they're at during those special days down at Burke. So let's kind of move on and talk about when you have your own kid play for you, when you coach all these other things. What you mentioned a little bit, but what are those main things that you're hoping that really are instilled into your athletes and your players and into the kids in your classroom as well?
Well, the first thing is just representing the school, right? The football program, your parents, right? Representing them well, right? Doing things the right way. And so it kind of goes back to what the whole podcast is about. It's bigger than you, right? So sure, you can have a player go out and they can make great plays and they can make an interception and return it for a touchdown, or take the kickoff return for a touchdown. But there's always other people out there that are helping you do that. Whether that pick, that guy that got the pick and pick six and returned it, great play. But there were probably people pressuring the quarterback to make him throw an errant pass, right? There was somebody that blocked on the way back as you were running for your touchdown. And so just the fact that you are doing this for something bigger than yourself. I teach history, there's all kinds of examples of that in history and military stuff and all that type of thing, where people are fighting or working for a cause that's bigger than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is probably one of the most important aspects of sports, of history, is that there's always something bigger than yourself. And if you are just going to achieve that, right, and that's what your biggest goal is, you can accomplish way more than you could by trying to do it alone.
Yeah. No, and you kind of took the words right out of my mouth, and that it's not about me. And one thing that I find that's stuck with me for so many years is when you go through goal setting with your teams, and you always establish the first goal. And what is that first goal, and how did you kind of come about that?
Every year we have a senior meeting with the coaches, and the players come up, and I have the players come up with goals for the year. And most of them are related to something out on the football field, right? But one of my biggest goals, and the first goal I set for them every year, is we have to win 5 games, right? Because I want these kids to have a winning record, right? I want them to go off the field and know that we won more games than we lost. There's 9 games in the regular season, and so if you win 5, you're guaranteed that you're not going to have a losing record, right? And so that's kind of just I stole that from my dad. My dad did that at Newman. I like it. It kind of puts everybody on an even playing field at the start of the year. This is our goal. This is what we're working for. Once we get there, we can reassess, right? Yeah. And we've been lucky enough that we've been to 5 wins after 5 games, quite a bit. And we get together. We usually have some type of a pizza party or whatever after practice. And, at that point, it's usually like, let's just win the rest. And so, that's always kind of the goal. But here's where we're at, and this is what we're working for. And if you start and kind of break down those goals into more manageable steps, it makes it quite more feasible that you can achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah, I always found that very interesting and something that really I relate now to all things in life, but with that goal setting, win those 5, because it makes experience and everything else so great for those kids. And it's all about that winning record, and not necessarily, yes, you want to win the state title, maybe, but let's make sure everybody has a great experience and have that winning experience. So thanks for passing that on, and thanks to your dad for passing it on for so many. And there's always those little whispers in the back. I know what he's going to say, win 5 games, but we all know what and so it's kind of fun being part of those meetings as well. Kind of looking down and looking forward, what kind of advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time and look at coaching and teaching?
Wow. I was lucky enough that I got a lot of good advice from my dad.
Yeah.
My dad was always just a phone call away, and he had experienced it all. So, I threw so many scenarios at him, and he's like, well, this is what I would do. And so I always had somebody to kind of bounce that off of. Another person that really always has given me really good advice, and sometimes not from the coaching perspective, was I could always talk to my wife. She's a big Skyhawk football supporter, and sometimes it's good to get the viewpoint of somebody that's not around it day after day, hour after hour, hour after hour, and they can look at it from an outsider's view and just be like, this is what you should do. And so I've been lucky to surround myself and assistant coaches. I mean, I've just been very blessed to have people that are around me that are looking out for the good of the program and myself. And so, if I had to go back, maybe just slow down a little bit. I still get into that scenario every week. Sometimes you just you have a win and you should just enjoy the win. There's only 9 games, right? So if you don't slow down and enjoy those wins, it just keeps going. But I think I just get, so what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And sometimes you just got to slow down and be like, what, enjoy the accomplishments and we're always looking what's next. And sometimes I think society is like that. What's next? What can I do next? What can I do next? And sometimes just be like, what? It was a pretty successful week of practice, pretty successful game. Let's enjoy this one before we start worrying about what the next team is going to be running. So
saw Coach Osborne looking at that on the bus. So
yeah,
you got it from him. But
exactly.
Football is pretty it's got a good cadence.
It does.
Every Friday.
I like that. I like that repetitiveness.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the kids get bored with it, but I think we always tell kids repetition is your friend. Repetition is your friend. The more you do something, the better you get at it.
Yep.
And so, we tell our kids all the time. We run 2-ball drill every day, still have and the kids are like, we do this every day, and I'm like, yeah, and it's like riding a bike. You don't have to think about it. As soon as you can run plays and you can do your base stuff without having to think, it's just like jump on and go. We tell them it's like riding a bike.
And that helps you after that first snap.
Yeah, jump on and ride a bike, and it goes back to Coach Gill telling me just get the first snap.
Yeah,
it's
those are all
repetition is your friend.
Speaking of your wife, so people come on Friday, she's in that same spot, all bundled up, ready to go, but
she's always cold.
She's been on the sideline for a long time. Being a coach and having a coaching wife, what you mentioned some advice you got from her, but what other things does it mean to be a coach's wife and things like that?
Wow. A lot of time when I'm not around, raising 3 kids, coaching and putting all that time in, and her being a surgeon and putting that time in, she's kind of superwoman.
Yeah.
Because, when I was at football, she would be picking them up, she would be dropping them off, she'd be a full-time doctor, and still being there to support all our games and stuff. So her commitment to what I want to do and the football part of it has been a blessing.
Yeah.
I think behind every good coach, successful coach, there is a spouse that is very, very, very supportive. And so I can't thank her enough.
Her competitive fire probably happened a little bit in college too. So how did you guys meet?
So she was a college athlete too. She was a gymnast on the Nebraska gymnastics team. The gymnastics maybe not quite as national championship, but their glory years were probably back when she was going too.
Yeah.
They did not have the Final Four in gymnastics.
No.
They called it the Super Six. And for the national championship tournament, there was the 6 teams that would go, and they would compete for the national title. And so it wasn't Final Four, but like basketball, but the Super Six. And when she was there, I think they were in the Super Six her last 3 years.
Wow!
And so she was a really, really good gymnast. Was like a 4 or 5 time All-American on the bars and the floor. And so she's very competitive too.
She knows time commitment. Being very competitive,
exactly. Because gymnastics might even be more time commitment than football. So, but she loves sports too. She's been around it her whole life, and so she sometimes I think she's a little bit tough on her kids. Like they complain about something's wrong, they're like, "You're fine, go back and play." So but yeah, she was very competitive. So we actually met in the weight room. So. She was actually doing some rehab stuff for her back, and I went in there to lift and went up to talk to her while she was doing some stuff on like a big. She was doing like some stretching stuff on like a big medicine ball or rehab ball, and so like doing some like leaning back, trying to stretch out her back and stuff, and so. That's where we met.
Again, the weight room plays a vital role in success right there. So that's good.
Not only successful for football, but for maybe finding a spouse.
There you go. See? So the weight room's important, everybody.
Get in there.
So Mike McMahon, AD, when you first came in, and he had a phrase, how do you want to be remembered? What does that ring for you? How would you like to be? You have a lot of years left in you, but how would you like to be remembered?
Well, I think just as a first of all, a coach that put the good of the kids in the program before my own success.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever. I try to make sure. If I'm talking to the press, I don't ever want to say I or me. That's really not what it's about.
Yep.
So it's about us. It's about we. What did we do? Because the coach doesn't do it. One player doesn't do it. it's a community. It's a whole thing. And I tell people all the time that the school's been a blessing. I can't imagine, anywhere else having the type of support, not just from kids wanting to be part of something, but also administrative support and community support.
We have really good families.
Parental support.
Yeah.
They all are rowing in the same direction. I don't want to steal something from Minnesota and PJ Fleck, but it feels like we're almost always rowing the boat in the same direction.
Yeah.
And so, I want to be remembered as an important cog in that piece where, everybody's coming together for the good of the whole.
That's awesome.
And so, that's really the point that I'd like to drive home.
Yeah. Well, part of starting this podcast was a Skyhawk Power project that we have going on. What does that project in the Zinc Activity Center mean for you and the football program, things like that?
Well, the first thing that I'm most excited for is the weight room. You've been here a long time. I've been here a long time. The weight room is just right over here.
Yep, it's right behind us.
Yeah, so
300 kids in there probably right now.
And originally it was smaller than what it is now, quite a bit smaller.
Yep.
I was just trying to explain to some, like Barrett Liebentritt was in there and trying to explain to them where the wall was at. And they were like, what?
Yeah, knocked down took the faculty lounge and the conference room out and make it bigger.
Yeah. And so I think that is going to be instrumental in continuing the success of the football program and all the programs. We've already talked about how I feel that is like the one vital component to a successful season. And I'm not saying we've had a lot of success.
Oh yeah,
that has been bred right in that room right there.
Yep.
But I think the new facility and the extra room is just going to be above and beyond. It's a game changer, And then you take on top of that indoor field. We can go in and run routes. Football is very dependent now on the wet bulb.
Yes, it is.
and the is it too hot to go outside? Can you not put pads on? And when you're trying to get ready for week one, that kind of throws a monkey wrench into things as you're trying. Like you said, football's very got
a good cadence in it.
Yeah, good cadence to it, and it's kind of repetitive. This is what we do at day one of the week, day two of the week, and so all of a sudden you can't go out in pads on a day you thought you could go out in pads because it's too hot. Completely alleviate that problem. I think it's a huge advantage to be able to go in there. Lightning delays, practice, go inside.
Yep.
And it's big enough to get a real practice in.
Yeah.
Now, might have to change the way you do things a little bit, but you've coached with me, and lightning out and we try to go in the gym, it's not a whole lot you can do in there.
No.
And then half your kids don't have tennis shoes because they didn't bring them, and it's just a mess. So this is really exciting, and it's something that is going to benefit not only the football program but the whole school as a sports program.
It enhances the opportunities that we get. The expectations always stay the same, but a lot of more opportunities in there.
And I think there's that old saying that it's harder to stay on top than get there, and people are always gunning for us.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say that now,
No,
but we've had that, and that happens when you've had successful programs and successful sports around across the board. People are gunning for you.
Yeah.
And I think for us, hopefully being able to stay at the level we're at, or even improve upon it, this will be something that will help us do that. Yeah. And so I can't wait for it to get done. As stuff is being prepared, I walk up to the top of the bleachers and kind of look down. I'm getting more of a sense of how it's all coming together, but it'll be exciting this year as we wait and in anticipation for it to get done. Yeah,
it's crazy. 2012 was when the turf went on Moylan Field, so it's been a while for for a big athletic
Yeah.
project. So this is
Yeah.
kind of, hit the refresh button on the athletic side. So it's going to be exciting
It will
project.
be.
So a couple last questions
Sure.
here. Who are the people that you'd most like to thank for helping you become who you are?
Well, first and foremost are my mom and dad,
Yep.
and particularly my dad in the profession I'm in, because he molded me. I tell people still that, I what I do out on the football field and what I do in my coaching side of things, I still want my dad to be proud of me. I'm 50.
Yep.
I'm over
Oh, yeah.
50 years old, and I hope that when the season's over that I made my dad proud. So he's instrumental in what I have done and hopefully continue to do. And my mom is the same way. Kim, my
Yep.
wife, same thing. She's vitally important, and her support has meant the world.
Yeah.
And then, coaching wise, and besides that, Coach Turner Gill, and Coach Osborne, just their approach to things. I try to keep an even keel. I don't know if I'm as even keel as Coach Osborne or my dad, but maybe get a little bit too excited at times. But I try to keep an even keel, and most of the players know, because I'm not a big yeller and screamer.
Mm.
And so they know when I get mad that something's wrong. And so I've had players come in the past say, Coach, when you get mad, I got scared,
Yep.
because they knew something was not right. And so I try to kind of model that after those coaches, but as best as I can. And so those two are extremely important.
Yep.
And it'd be hard pressed not to thank my assistant coaches, because I told you I've been
Yep.
blessed with that. And really, Monsignor Gill, I'll always have a special spot in my heart here,
Yep.
because he took a chance on a 27-year-old kid to come in and take over a program that he wanted to be successful. And so
Yeah.
just the opportunity to do that has been something that I will always remember.
Take over that opportunity were those two words, state championship. And he's like, you're in. Yeah, it's one of those stories you kind of mentioned, though, that you are pretty even keeled, but when Coach Turman starts to get that elevated voice or a little bit a pep in his step, the players all know, and it kind of refocuses the group sometimes. So
Sometimes
it's all good.
I've had people tell me that if you yell all the time, the kids just kind of tune it out.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a. They know when when the level is being cranked up a little bit.
Yeah. So last thing here, you mentioned a little bit of this, but the podcast is "It's Not About Me." What does that really mean to you today? That it's not about you.
Well, I just teaching, coaching, my profession, right? It's serving others, right? And I think that's the best way to put it. I hope to be a servant to others, to my players, to my students, to my assistant coaches, to parents, whatever needs to be done, just because I want their experience to be something special.
Yeah.
It's not about, nobody goes out on that football field and wins a game by themselves. I can't go out there and coach a game and be the only coach, right?
Yeah.
I put faith in my assistants and I let them do their thing. And I think that has instilled in the entire staff and the entire football program that we all have a part to play.
Mm-hmm.
And when we all play that part, we can be successful. And it's not just successful for one person, it's the group as a whole. And that's the important thing.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining and for all the stuff that you do here at Scott Catholic. Been a tremendous coach, mentor, teacher here. You've done tremendous things for the school and the programs and for myself. So thanks for all you do. Thanks for making a difference in so many kids' lives, young people's lives. And thanks for being part of the podcast.
Yeah, it was awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.